Hey everybody, Adam Savage in one of my favorite places on earth, the Armor Conservation Lab at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And Sean here is about to give me a tour through the restoration and repair of this incredible chainmail. I just will tell you that in my research of chainmail, I know that like they often had a different color, but that original samples are really rare. Am I right about this?
Yeah, I mean, some survive, but so this is you've got an iron core. Every single ring of which is riveted.
Every single ring is riveted?
Every single one. And on the border, on sort of the abdomen, the bottom here, and on the ends of the sleeves, you have a decorative border made of brass.
With what looks like copper rivets in there.
With copper rivets, yeah.
Wow.
And you'll notice when you look in on it, this is not smooth wire. It's not flattened or rounded wire. Every single ring, and there's about 20,000 rings in this shirt, has an Islamic inscription. So this was made in Iran in the sort of late 15th or late 15th or early 16th century. It says Allah, Muhammad, Fatima, Hassan, Hussein.
Every single ring has that.
And it's such an impressive piece. This is part of a group of, I'm not sure exactly how many still survive, but a rather large group. All almost identically made. The same inscription. They even put the rivet through the same part of the name of Hassan. So they had to have been made in the same workshop.
Right.
Yeah, really fabulous piece.
It is so beautiful. I mean, I'm gobsmacked by the detail, and it makes me exhausted just thinking about it.
Yeah, and what we're missing here is this would have actually had a high collar, which would have been stitched to a sort of a padded textile, so it would have stayed up and rigid to protect the throat.
So there'd be more rings on that collar.
Yeah, there would have been more rings up here, and we would have also had some textile up here, which is why the brass rings just stop. Because this all would have been covered.
Are these original clasps, these S-hooks?
They're probably not original clasps. I think the textile that was added onto it would have had laces or something to tie it on. So these have been added just for display at some point in its past.
And so this did not arrive here in this state?
No, this came in quite a state. It was, it was so covered in dirt and grime that the brass and the iron were basically the same color. It was almost brass. It was very hard to tell.
So it's not clear that it was two different.
You had to look real close to tell that these were different. Also, you've lost the color, but there were over 100 small losses throughout the shirt. It was a huge
small losses, so holes where rings no longer were.
So there ended up being sort of 149 sort of, we'll say, individual ring losses, independent of the collar.
Right.
So large loss around the back of the neck, and then individual losses all over, almost made it look like a moth-eaten piece of fabric.
Yeah.
We didn't feel it was really displayable in that condition. And, mail is wearable. It is a light, flexible fabric, but it does have some weight to it because it is made of iron. So if you have a loss, that can put strain on the rings around it. So you have a chance of further loss, which is probably what happened with this shirt, is you have individual losses, it's jostled around, you're knocking out more rings.
Right.
So we felt that we needed to do something. One thing you can do with a male shirt is you make a mannequin, you pin it to that mannequin so that you can display it in roughly the same position. You'll still have those losses.
And because you pinned it, you've also taken some of the strain off the surrounding rings.
Yeah, taken some of the strain off. And that is a viable way to do it. But then you don't do anything for the inherent stability of the object.
Yeah.
If you ever need to take it off again for examination, a researcher is going to want to see the interior of these rings. So we decided to fill those losses. But with the inscription, like in a normal circumstances, we would put in a simple round or flattened piece of wire. But you put that into this inscribed shirt, and it jumped out as a replacement. You see it instantly, your eyes are drawn to it.
So did you do that? You did a little test of a repair, and then you guys all talked about whether or not it was...
Yeah,
and you all felt like, no.
This is not, we can't do this. We can't put this on display. Well then, what do you do?
Yeah.
And we had an added layer of this is an inherently religious object that is representing an active current religion.
Yeah.
So we had some ideas, and fortunately we had a fellow with us who was researching specifically Indian and Islamic arms and armor. So she got in touch with some of her colleagues who were Islamicists and broached the issue of restoring this shirt. And basically the bullet points we got back were there's nothing inherently wrong with a non-Muslim recreating the inscription, but we couldn't alter the inscription at all. And so we took that very seriously. So what we decided to do was recreate the original inscription as best we could and fill those losses.
So you made your own rings with the same inscription and the same level of
Yeah, so we made a die. And now, originally, you would have actually carved the inscription in a positive and then stamped that into the negative into the die. But we wanted to keep as close as possible to the original inscription. So we actually printed out a one-to-one photograph in Photoshop, and digitally we etched it. We etched it into the die, so we would have literally the handwriting of the original maker. Obviously, it's pretty worn down. We had a lot of rings on this.
Yeah.
We heat treated this, and then we started stamping out replacement rings featuring the original inscription. Here's some rejects, but I think it gives you a good idea.
Oh my gosh.
So now when they come out, they're a little too crisp. Now, these are not particularly great, but the shirt has had a long life. It's corroded in the past. I think it is acid cleaned at some point. So we needed to match that. So we then acid etched the individual rings.
Oh, so that was like a post process that it was acid etched.
Yeah. So we acid etched it to just wear it down, make it look as if it had a longer life, and then we sort of rubbed some pigmented wax over it to sort of darken it, blend it in with the patina of the shirt, and then we inserted them in. And now these original rings were all riveted.
Right.
And there is a patch of riveted rings at the back. We made you simple, just sort of punch out a little hole, fill it with a rivet. Had to modify some sort of, these are made for people who do reproductions and just sort of modified to
so
rivet
that's
those.
your rivet set.
That's my rivet set there, my riveting tongs.
So I was just thinking you were about to tell me how you faked the rivets, but no, you actually...
Well, there's the thing, just along the back of the neck, right? Because that was a large loss.
Yeah.
And we were worried about the structural stability.
Ah.
But that is all held in with just the butted rings. So if at any point someone wants to remove it, they just open up the butted rings and the whole patch comes out and you're left with just original material.
Amazing.
And then to facilitate that, because now we've made it hard to identify what is and is not original material, we have a small MMA stamp. And so the interior of every ring is stamped with the MMA to mark it as a replacement. So when you turn the shirt inside out, you can literally see, and you count to 149, and you will pop out every single one of these, and it can be removed quickly, and we can return it to the sort of the original state of the object.
That's amazing. I mean, I had understood this place as a place where you regularly converse with the past, but I didn't realize that you are also regularly conversing with the future. And that's really beautiful. Like you're just here for a period of time to be the stewards and conservators of these things, but they'll be maintained for hundreds and hopefully thousands of years into the future.
Yeah, my predecessor liked to say that the art is eternal. We're all just passing through.
Yeah.
And you have to have that mentality when you work on a piece of art, that the person who comes after you may not have the same ideas you had or have the same beliefs, and you have to set up a world where they can undo what you did.
Right. Because just as your predecessors may have made some poor decisions, we might today be making some poor decisions.
Yeah.
Oh, that's incredible. I didn't realize that they're all only stamped with the inscription on one side of each ring.
Yeah, you will have some other ones are actually stamped on both sides. And what's really interesting is, so there's a group that is probably Mamluk. And the back ends are stamped with this little roping pattern. And if you look at Mamluk coins from the time, the way the roping changes in these male shirts mirrors how it changes in the coinage. And so it seems likely the people cutting the coining dies are the same people making the male dies.
That is so thrilling.
Cool.
That's really like, wow.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, that's really neat. When you're doing these repairs, it's not always going to be super obvious where the lines are falling for some of these repairs. I mean, some of it must be a little bit of trial and error to kind of make sure you're getting it.
Yeah, for the most, and this is a fairly simple shirt as shirts go.
Right.
For most of the wide surfaces, you've got a set pattern. There's 4 rings go into 1 ring. You do run into some expansions sort of like along the sleeves, and really it gets complicated inside of the armpits.
Sure.
Those you just trial and error. You put it in, you're like, well, that's not sitting right. You take it out and you go, oh, I need 2 here or whatever.
Same thing
and
with
you make
sewing.
it work.
Where the sleeve meets the shirt is always the hardest part.
Yeah.
How long did this restoration take from the time you decided to make these rings until you had them installed?
Well, it's hard to say because I was working on other projects at the same time. But we'll say about a year. There was a lot of research that went into it beforehand because we don't start with one option. We come up with multiple options and we go, well, these aren't going to work, and then we proceed from there. And, very fortunate to have, the staff here,
gonna
and I had
say.
2 great conservators I was working with to help me with this.
And that amount of time to really
Yeah.
make sure you're getting it right.
Yeah, and I was a fellow. This was like a research project for me. So it was, not a lot of people are allowed to dedicate the time to something like this.
It must be thrilling to
is.
still today to see it up on the show.
I get happy every time I see it.
I took my breath away the moment I walked in because it was sitting over there, and it really has a kind of an incredible presence to it.
Yeah.
Oh, Sean, thank you so much for walking me through this. This
my
is
pleasure.
insane. I cannot believe you guys did that with every single one. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.